Okay. Whenever the clerk is ready to call roll, please call roll.
All right, Trustee Paulsen. Here. Trustee Hacker. Here. Trustee Lucas.
Here.
Trustee Lightfoot.
Here.
Supervisor Brady.
Here. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next is review and approval of the board minutes from the regular board meeting held on July 11, 2022.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of the board meeting held on July 11th, 2022.
Trustee Paulsen made the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Trustee Lucas seconded the motion. Any discussion, excuse me. Hearing none, please call the roll.
Trustee Paulsen. Aye. Trustee Hacker.
Aye.
Trustee Lucas.
Aye.
Trustee Lightfoot.
Aye.
Supervisor Brady.
Aye, motion passes. Public comments. Anyone interested in making any public comments at this time? There are no public present other than the board at this moment. Moving on, review and approval of board audit report for the amount of $230,506.99. I'll make the motion,
I'll second.
seconded by trustee Legna. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call roll.
Trustee Paulsen.
Aye.
Trustee Hacker.
Aye.
Trustee Lucas.
Aye.
Trustee Lightfoot.
Aye.
Supervisor Brady.
Aye, motion passes. Business, not at the moment. Monthly financial investments report, that's information only. I included the DuPage County Children's Annual Report. This is information only for the board. I can also put it on the website as well after this so that people can see it. Does anyone have any questions or concerns regarding this?
Print those last 2 pages on the website.
Which last two? I don't have to put the last 2 pages,
I would
but
have to put
these,
those last 2 pages on there.
the last 2 ones? Okay, no problem. I mean, it's just what, I mean, it's public,
Some of that's
whatever,
for
but
discussion.
I know it is, but at the same time, it is something that we do give to, and hopefully it goes to something good, absolutely, 100%, just wanted to show. And then in review and approval of the audit by Sullivan Fox 2021-2022, we have Ed Tracy here with us, and he's gonna be going through everything in why it says draft and all that good jazz.
Yeah, okay, so, these reports do say draft, but I believe them to be in final form. What we normally do with our government reports is we have the board approve a draft, and then go to final right after that. So you see there's not a date, the date of the report should be the date that they've been approved to go final, which is why we kind of present them in a draft form like this. Nearly on all our clients, there's some exceptions sometimes, but that's why they're draft. So we don't anticipate any further changes, it's just, it's draft pending your approval. There's a couple letters first, which I'll just cover really briefly. This first letter is untitled and it's addressed to the Board of Trustees and Management. This is what's called our management letter. Really, it's probably looks very similar to what it was last year. We do include a comment as we do with nearly all of our clients. And if we determine that there's not expertise in-house to prepare the audit report with all its required disclosures and the like. Nearly all our clients don't prepare their own audit report. They have us prepare it. It's a matter of convenience. It doesn't make sense for an organization your size to have, expertise in-house to do that. So that's why that's kind of there. I don't really recommend any change other than just to make sure you review and understand the audit report. Second comment refers to reporting by funds. You have a common checking account that then sometimes gets, the expenses from that checking account get spread across funds. And when we do our report, we kind of balance within each fund by using these inter-fund receivable payable accounts. It's something you could look to set up within your own system. QuickBooks doesn't work great with this, to be honest, but so we just like to point that out. Again, it's something to make you aware of it. It's not something you necessarily have to address at any point in time. It's kind of just to make you aware, as I said. The other two comments just relate to future accounting pronouncements that will be coming up, that become effective soon. The biggest one is for leases. Now, I don't know, at least it has the most widespread applicability. It may not for you, the but at least now, but maybe in future. And I just wanted to make you aware that going forward, starting next year, any leases that you enter into, in the government-wide statements will be considered a liability, whether it's, now there was a distinction between what's a capital lease, where you kind of buy equipment, and an operating lease where maybe you rent space. It doesn't really matter, all those leases are gonna be on the balance sheet in the government-wide statements going forward. So just wanna make you aware, make sure that you're thinking that when, if you enter into any kind of leases like that. And then the last comment just is all the other standards. These are all very limited in their applicability across most governments. They're very specific, but we just kind of like to make you aware of what's out there, what's coming. And the one that might have some applicability is the last one that was just released on compensated absences, but that's not gonna be effective for a couple of years, so we'll have plenty of time to get ready for that. The second letter is communication with those charged with governance. And this really is, these are required, this is a required communication we're supposed to have with the board, addressing specific topics as noted in bold. This letter doesn't change much from year to year. It's really, if we don't get cooperation, we're getting challenged in our audit procedures or challenged in our accounting interpretations, things like that. That's where we would bring this to your attention. There wasn't any of those issues. Nicole, Dina, they were very, very cooperative, very helpful, so we should appreciate it. So it's pretty much a boilerplate language letter. It's only when you have those issues where it comes out. It does include, as an exhibit, some of the adjustments we made. And we make a few adjustments, typically to pick up some out-of-period expenses, and any expenses that were paid in the April, May, that relate to costs incurred prior to March 31st, and so we'll bring those back into the year. And we typically will do that each year. So sometimes there's reversing what we did last year, pulling in expenses from this year, those types of things. We had 7 entries in all, but the net effect wasn't too big, and most of them are generally pretty small. But we kind of like prepaid expenses and payables. We try to do them each year to best match the revenues and expenses to their proper period. And then the second exhibit, and I'll get into the audit report next, but the second exhibit adjusts the books for what we call the government-wide financial statements. They're on a different basis of accounting, and I'll explain it more when I get to the report. But we have to identify or recognize long-term assets, long-term liabilities for this government-wide financial statements. We get this information from schedules and things that we get from the client, get from management, I should say, or in the case of the pension adjustments, that comes from IMRF. So these are the same entries we make each year to convert your books from the fund basis of accounting to this government-wide basis of accounting. And we do this on nearly every government we work with. So this is very, very normal and typical adjustments that you see in Exhibit 2. As far as the audit report is concerned, or the annual financial report, there's one change this year, which I want to highlight, and then I'll just kind of note a few things of interest in the rest of it. But in years past, you had this road bond fund, which kind of held the deposits that were from contractors, people who did work in the township. And in years past, those were kept in what was called a fiduciary fund, so they're kind of in their own separate fund, their own separate statement. One of the new standards that became effective, and actually became effective last year, but there's really a lot of uncertainty, and it related to how those would be handled. And basically, if you control the assets in the fund, which is like the cash that you're holding, so you in effect control it, and it came from what they call the government's own source revenue, then it should be reported within like a governmental fund as opposed to it by itself in a fiduciary fund. And it wasn't really clear on the bond performance type funds, whether or not that was considered the government's own source revenue. But they came out with some more clarification on that, and the fact that you were able to take some of that into income because it expired.
Correct.
Made a determination that, that really should be, that does meet the requirements under this new standard, so it should be reported in a governmental fund, in this case the permanent road fund, as opposed to in its own separate standalone fund for external reporting purposes. You can still maintain the books in the same manner as you do and keep isolated in the same manner as you. All it amounted to is bringing some cash and a liability from that fiduciary fund into the permanent road
I'll
fund.
talk to John and his lawyer about that, let him know, okay?
Yeah, we did, I did talk to John
Cool.
last week about it because I wanted to make sure I clear,
Yeah.
And that's where, in our conversations, we determined that the permanent road fund was the funded to do this. So that's a change, that's one change, so you don't see a separate, so when you're, tonight, when you got last year's and this year's, and you're doing them side by side, just doing it
Yeah.
close,
I get it.
you'll notice that, that fiduciary fund is no longer there, that activity is reported within the permanent road fund. So I just wanted to point that out. As far as this, reports itself is concerned, after our independent audit report, there's a management discussion and analysis section, that's just kind of a narrative summary of the year. Then we get to the financial statements, and like I mentioned before, there's two sets of financial statements, government-wide and then fund financial statements. Government-wide financial statements you really only see in this report. You don't really track that internally, no one does, or very few governments do. But it's kind of meant to be like a full accrual basis, so it has all the long-term assets, long-term liabilities, get reported on that statement in that position, which is that balance sheet. Whereas, like if you bought a piece of equipment in the governmental funds, it would just be an expense. Here, it's put on a balance sheet as a capital asset and then depreciated over time. So that's the difference between the two sets of statements. I think the more relevant set of financial statements is the fund financial statements, but our governmental accounting requires both of these two sets of statements. Just a couple of quick highlights from the statements themselves. In the government-wide financial statements, the statement of activities on pages 13 and 14 is like your income statement on a full accrual basis. And I just kind of wanted to point out that for the year under this full accrual basis, at the bottom of page 14, you'll see a change in that position number of $476,839. That's your positive bottom line for the year under this full accrual basis of account. If you go ahead, if you flip ahead a few pages to pages 18 and 19, kind of lay those out flat. This is your income statement under the fund basis. And if you go to, there's a line, changes in fund balance near the bottom. If you go all the way to the right, you'll see a positive bottom line of $88,071 under the fund accounting basis. So there's quite a difference there between the $476,839 and the $88,000. And that's the difference in how long-term assets and long-term liabilities are accounted for. A big difference, and there's a reconciliation on page 20 which shows what those differences are. And the biggest difference relates to, it's basically the difference in how capital assets and depreciation. So this year we added $452,000, a lot of that's like infrastructure type work, and had depreciation expense of $532,000. And then the change in the net pension liability was significant as well. And what that net pension liability is in the government-wide statements, you recognize an asset or liability for the difference between the investments that are being held at IMRF for the township and the benefits earned to date, like the net present value of the benefits earned to date by current and former township employees. So typically that's, ideally, you have assets on hand to pay those future benefits. It'd be like your funding level would be right around 100%. Well, the last few years, IMRF's investments have done really well, and they determine what you contribute based on and projecting what their investments are going to earn. So they give you a number to contribute. Well, those investments are in a lot more than what they were projecting. So you built up big surplus, and you're not alone. All IMRF members have. But right now you're like at 135% funded. So your assets are significantly more than your projected future benefits at this point in time. So I would anticipate your contribution rate will come down. They do everything kind of on a 5-year rolling average, so you're not gonna see a big drop and then any kind of. But I would anticipate you seeing a continual decline in your IMRF rate because of how well funded the plan is. Your IMRF plan is. Just some last few highlights for you. The general town fund, if you look on page 18, it had the change in fund balance was $53,925, so that was the positive bottom line for the year in the general town fund. Fund balance is a little over 100% of your annual expenses. The other funds, in these funds, they're listed specifically are what's considered major funds. And then ones that aren't listed specifically are included in this column near the second from the right, non-major funds. But the major funds all report positive fund balances with the or positive changes in fund balance, I should say, with the exception of the permanent road fund had expenses in excess of revenues of $56,287, which was significantly less than what the budget was calling for. And then the equipment and building fund had expenses in excess of revenues of $163,171. And in both instances, there was sufficient fund balance to absorb that. All other funds reported a positive bottom line for the year. So.
Any questions for Ed?
I have one question.
Mhm.
Warrenville Youth and Family Services is listed
What
at
page?
4/18.
18. This was last year's now, not this year's.
I thought we were gonna,
Last year's. This is last year's,
Last year.
not this year's.
okay, so we upped it to 8 this year.
Correct.
Okay, I thought we were gonna
No
give her
worries.
that other 4 from, no, okay, then, I understand. I got it.
Because they had only received
Yeah,
half.
okay, all right, I got you. Now I recall the conversation.
You need a motion to approve the audit? I, make a motion to, approve the audit by Southern Fact for 2021, 2022.
I'll second it.
Motion made by trustee Bolt, seconded by trustee Alekna. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Trustee Bolt.
Aye.
Trustee Hacker.
Aye.
Trustee Lucas.
Aye.
Trustee Alekna.
Aye.
Supervisor Curry.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And
Thank
we'll get these finalized and give.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Just changing dates, guys, that's all we're doing.
We'll
There you go.
we'll put today's date down.
Yeah, perfect.
Because that's when it was approved. That'd be the only change.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Ed. You have a great day.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you, Ed.
Thanks. Home business, we have this time, department reports.
Yes, so today we had a referendum petition filed. Trustee Lucas and her group initiated this in regards to the mental health board to be placed on the ballot in a referendum question. So we did receive that. We've got everything put together and ready to go over to the county. So if anybody has any questions on it or anything like that, feel free to ask myself or Trustee Lucas. I'm sure she has a lot more information than I do from it. And as well, I just wanted to extend a big thank you to Supervisor Prater, Trustee Volz, anybody else who stepped in this last couple of months. I lost both my parents within 2 weeks back in June. So it's been a lot of travel back and forth to Florida with a house. I am the only child. So it's been very hectic. So I know I hadn't formally announced anything yet, and we were kind of wondering what was going on, but that was the case. So big thank you to you guys for the support and the, taking care of what, helping me out with that stuff. I really appreciate
I got my uni ball.
it. There you go.
Excellent. Thank you, Clerk Guillaume. Moving
I have
on.
one question.
Oh, sure,
On the
sorry.
referendum question that was presented, were there any type of information, household amounts, what it's gonna cost, any of that? Or is this just a question being asked if there's concern or if there's, what am I thinking?
You haven't even filed it with the
No, I'm
county
just,
yet, so,
right, but I mean.
the referendum question we can put something up on the site. We just wanted to at least
Okay,
let everyone know
okay.
that
Right.
it wasn't a board decision to put this on, but it will be under Winfield Township that petitioners came in and put
Right,
the
but in
question
the
on.
questioning of the question, is there dollar amounts or anything?
No dollar amounts,
So
percentage
nothing,
amounts.
percentage, so like, usually you get a referendum and they say a $300,000 house is gonna cost 150, none of that stuff's on there.
No, this is like a not to exceed.
Okay.
Yeah, this is, the state of Illinois law is like a not to exceed,
Okay,
but that doesn't mean it has to be that amount.
no, okay, I was just curious.
It can be lower.
Okay.
Cool, excellent.
Under ongoing business, the
Oh, and
grain
this-
tower, those going at the county.
I was just about to start talking about department reports.
Partners, okay.
Yeah. Sorry. General assistance, 207 calls, emergency assistance, we had one for rent, 3 for food, 1 past response for grants, Salvation Army as well. And Claudia and I will do some general assistance training on the 22nd of July. We also, with our back to school numbers, we were able to help 32 children with back to school backpacks, everything, and that information will be given as well later. Ride to Page, there were 2 drivers with 6 stops. Our bus for the month of July had 113 riders and 190 stops. With this, I actually added a notice to all bus participants for return appointments, meaning that they pick you up at your house or your location you want to be picked up at. Let's say we drop you off at Jewel, okay? We will wait 10 minutes to pick you up from Jewel. If you say, hey, come here at 12 o'clock, we'll wait 10 minutes. We will try to contact you via your cell phone one time. If you do not answer, come out to the bus. After 10 minutes, the bus will leave for its next appointment. If you know you are running late, please call or text our bus driver, give the phone number, to let him know the issue. This number is only to be used if you are running behind the day of your appointment. All other calls should be made to the bus hotline. We had our bus driver waiting at Wheaton Eye Clinic for over an hour of his time that he should have been with his family. I understand that this is a free service, and I understand that sometimes doctors run late and behind and all that. The person had someone with her that could have, a caretaker that could have possibly come out and just said, just let the bus driver know, just communication, simple. But the fact that he wants, I can't give him that hour of time with his family back, you know? So it's just a common courtesy thing for our bus driver, just to know what's going on. And plus, 10 minutes right now with the way the bus service is increasing, it messes up the whole dynamic of everything. So I made that executive order and we put it on the bus, we let people know, we put it on the website, we put it in the new brochures, and I think that's amicable. No tenant on the bus or participants of the bus are saying they don't like it, they understand. So just wanted to let you guys know that. I'm working on the levy. Also, FYI for 2022, July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022, I asked Ways how things are going. That's Winfield and Wayne Youth and Family Services. They service 99 clients from 72 families. That's a 30% increase from the fiscal year 2021, providing 1,062 hours of direct services. That's a 25% increase in hours. So I thought that was pretty cool. Regarding grants and stuff, LARPA funds, everything got turned in on time on the 1st to the county for LARPA funds. We're asking for $384,632 for LARPA funds. And we're just waiting to hear back from the county on what will be approved, what will not be approved, how will they go about it. I will also send you guys an email on LARPA funds when the actual meeting is going to take place at the county. So maybe we can have a couple people show up and say, hey, we need these funds. Other than that, any other questions? A motion to adjourn by trustee Bowles, seconded by trustee Alegna. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion passes at 7:23 p.m. Thank you very much.
There's some popcorn again.
I do really, let me know, trails on.
Yeah.
Okay.